Hello, everyone. Hope you all are doing well today. Back at it for another creative writing installment. As promised, we're going to continue on Wednesdays with fiction, and Thursdays we will experiment with poetry. So today I wanted to talk about a few things before I share what I have written for you all today. When you are writing short stories or fiction, it is very important to find a way to not have it all figured out, I guess, is the best way to start. I am speaking about this because of what came up in my writing example today. Today was a little tricky. Today was not as easy flowing of a day for me for writing. And I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm sure there's plenty of that going on for all of you back at home. So I was a little frustrated initially. I started with a writing prompt that I really liked. And I didn't even get through the first sentence of my own writing without having all of these questions in my head about where is this story going? What is this story about? Who is this story about? These are all important things to consider when you are writing a short story, but they are not things that have to be answered all of the time. Sometimes some of the best stories leave some questions dangling for their audience members. And I'm hoping that hearing me talk about the fact that I struggle with this might be a relief to some of you that are trying out these writing exercises, because it is really easy to get down on yourself. It's really easy to get frustrated and just give up or whatever. And especially if you're doing, taking a shot at some of these at home, and there is no instructor there to say, hey, what do you got at the end of these writing prompts? I'm sure some of you, and I'm not going to say all, but I'm sure that some of you might feel that need to just stop or put it down, or maybe not even come back to it. And I pushed through some of those frustrations today to write my piece. And I decided to leave alone the questions that I couldn't answer. And so that's really what I'm trying to get at. I'm talking around the point that I'm trying to make. And the point I'm really trying to make is to give yourself permission to answer the questions in your own mind about your own story and your own characters and what's happening. Feel free to answer the questions that you have answers for, and not worry about the questions that you don't have answers for. Okay, so that's my little intro, trying to give you all permission to not have it all figured out, because that is what is beautiful about creative writing. I have been a writer for a long time now, and I am always amazed at what stories come up that I didn't think I would be writing. And I think a part of freeing yourself up a bit is giving yourself the permission to answer the questions you can when you can, and also give yourself the permission to leave some things open-ended in your story writing. Okay? So today I wrote from a random random first line generator. Okay, so I went online, typed in random first line generator, and some really cool ideas popped up. I clicked through several before I landed on this random first line. And I found a line that was evocative for me. It means it pulled something out of me. It made me think. So I'm going to read that first line to you guys here. So what I came up with was our first line it's a long sentence. It's actually two sentences. And the first sentence is a quotation, which means it has little quotes on both sides of the sentence, which means it is a line that is being spoken by a character in the story. But I appreciated that this random first line did not tell you who spoke this first line. So there's a question mark right there. That you could get stuck on trying to answer, but you don't have to. So the first sentence of this random first line is, "It's so lovely to meet you." And those are in quotation marks on either side of that. "It's so lovely to meet you" is the first part. And then the second part is, "It was said in a way that immediately made him feel special, comma, the long-lost family member." Okay, I'm going to read that part again because that's a much longer sentence. Second sentence for the beginning of our story is, "It was said in a way that immediately made him," so there's a good clue for all of us writers, "made him feel special, comma, the long-lost family member, period." Okay, so our first line altogether is quotation mark first, "It's so lovely to meet you," quotation mark ending, and then the second part is, "It was said in a special way that immediately made him," "It was said in a way that immediately made him feel special, the long-lost family member." Okay, so before I share my writing piece, I'm going to just try to share with you guys my thought process in trying to come up with something to write. So I initially selected this from several different first lines because I liked the quotation without telling you who was speaking, and I really liked this this sentiment, the feeling that someone felt special. And I immediately started thinking about how some people need to feel special sometimes. And when someone makes you feel special, it is a really generous and sweet thing. And so I decided that I would explore a character that maybe really needed to feel special that day. And so that was my jumping off point. Okay. Also, the word him is an interesting clue to me that I think the main character of this story is a him. And so I kind of took that and ran with it. Okay, so now I'm going to share with you guys my short story for today, and then I'm going to do the same thing that I did last week. Is I'm going to talk through line by line, basically, and try to give you guys an idea of my own thought process. So here we go. Reading time now. Okay. "It's so lovely to meet you." It was said in a way that immediately made him feel special, the long-lost family member. It had been a rough year for Aaron, where he had lost touch with so many because of his job. The sentiment touched him in a way he was not expecting. He had moved halfway across the planet for many reasons. He told everyone that it was for work, but those that were closest to him knew he was running away from a past he no longer wanted to face. As he walked into the home of his coworker, it was like he found the eye of the hurricane. It was alarmingly calm. And baggage he always seemed to be carrying remained outside their front door. It was a brief moment, but he felt sheltered by their generosity. How does one treat a stranger so warmly? He was in awe of their cordiality. He knew in the course of a 30-minute dinner, he would be able to make this strange new life work. With a new pep in his step, he politely thanked them. This evening has been remarkable. I can't believe how welcome you have both made me feel. Okay, so there's our short story for the day. So now let's go through it line by line, and I will try to share with you guys how I got where I got, and most importantly, the questions I did not answer. Okay? What is Zach talking about with all that? Well, I'm going to talk about that in greater detail right now. All right, so I'll just reiterate our first line, which was generated by the random generator, is, "It's so lovely to meet you." It was said in a way that immediately made him feel special, the long-lost family member. And then I've already shared with you guys, I was trying to figure out who would need to hear that. And I immediately thought about a very old friend of mine that I knew back when I was in high school and college. And this friend of mine accepted a job in the Philippines. And a lot of us were like, oh man, we're not going to get to see this friend for a while at least, because he's going to be so far away. And then I started to try to picture what that would feel like and how odd it might be to find yourself in a completely different country that does not have the main, English is not the main speaking language over there, and how foreign everything might feel, and how much someone in that sort of predicament would need to feel welcomed. So that was kind of my jumping off point. So I use a lot from my own life experiences, and then I change it, because I'm not going to sit here and write a whole story about my friend. I want to write a piece of fiction. So I want to make something up. But every good fiction writer uses things from real life to make up new things. And those are the stories that I have always found are the most fun to read, because they seem real. They seem very real. And they're not. So that's what's kind of interesting about fiction too. So then the next sentence I wrote was, it had been a rough year for Aaron. So I named the him, where he had lost touch with so many because of his job. And so I was imagining a character who had a similar opportunity to my friend, that had a job opportunity that was too good to say no to. And so he decided, I'm gonna go this way, even though it's a bit scary. Then the next sentence I wrote, the sentiment touched him in a way he was not expecting. So I was imagining that this character, Aaron, was not expecting to hear, it's so lovely to meet you, in that particular way. There's a lot of people that when you first meet them, they say, oh, it's so lovely to meet you. And it kind of gets thrown off, if you will, or it just doesn't come across in a way that really affects the person that is hearing that. But that is not the case in our story here. In our story here, the prompt told me that this made the main character feel special, okay, like a long-lost family member. So that's why I wrote this next sentence. The sentiment touched him in a way he was not expecting. And then I thought I should explain a bit of the circumstance that this character finds themselves in. He had moved halfway across the planet for many reasons. He told everyone that it was for work, but those that were closest to him knew he was running away from a past he no longer wanted to face. Where did that come from, Zach? Oh, well, you know, I honestly, I was thinking about not my friend, but any type of person that would take a job that far away from everything they've ever known must in some way, not be all of them running away from a past, but they must in some way want a new transition. And so I selected having something that they were holding on to that maybe wasn't so good. And you know how sometimes when something good happens in a place, be it, you know, a house, an apartment, a town, or those kinds of local places, when something that you don't like happens there, sometimes it's hard to revisit those places. And so that's what I was trying to get at with that sentence, that this character, Aaron, needed to move away from the place that reminded him of a past he didn't want to be reminded of. Now, did I answer what that thing was in Aaron's past? No, I did not. Okay. I probably could answer that if I explored this short story further, but I didn't think it was particularly necessary to get into the specifics at this point in the story as to why he needed to leave his past behind. I just thought it was more important for this story to know that there was a past lurking back there for this character. The next sentence, as he walked into the home of his coworker, okay, so there's a clue as to who might have said, it's so lovely to meet you. It was like he found the eye of a hurricane. Okay, so I imagined this "it's so lovely to meet you" line was not said by Aaron's coworker, but perhaps I was just thinking that Aaron's coworker would probably be some sort of male friend that invited him over to make him feel welcome in this new area. But it sounded like "it's so lovely to meet you" was coming from the spouse of that coworker. Okay. Now I didn't name that coworker and I didn't name that spouse in this story. So there are a few other things that I left wide open. Okay. But it sounded like the kind of thing, because the coworker would have met Aaron in the course of their work, and the coworker would have invited Aaron over. Okay. So I was starting to imagine that this was a line, you know, from Aaron's coworker's wife, perhaps, that was just sharing, "it's so lovely to meet you" in a very, very special way. So then it was like the second part of that sentence, it was like he had found the eye of the hurricane. Now, I was getting a little poetic there, actually. And that part of this line could probably be found better in a poem, perhaps. But I was also trying to employ some imagery about this character, Aaron, having already stated that it was a rough year, that he's lost touch with people, that some people think he just moved away for work, but really those that know him know he moved away for other reasons too. And so I was imagining a sort of a whirlwind effect going on for this main character, Aaron. And that's why I chose the imagery about discovering the eye of a hurricane, because everything in Aaron's life has been swirling around him for a while, and then all of a sudden there was a calm and a peace. So that's what I was trying to get at with that bit of imagery. And I particularly enjoy imagery a lot. Painting a picture that might not seem like it's connected, but helps the audience dive a little deeper into what's going on. And then I went on to say, it was alarmingly calm, which is an interesting way to phrase that. And I didn't really think too much about it. It was just one of those things that when you find yourself, I imagine, I've never been in the eye of a hurricane, and I expect that none of you have been in the eye of a hurricane, where the whole hurricane is swirling around you, but the eye of a hurricane has been described as being incredibly calm. And so that's why I chose the word alarmingly calm. That perhaps this character, Aaron, was almost, kind of taken aback by how calm it was. And the baggage he always seemed to be carrying remained outside their front door. So I also was trying to paint the picture that Aaron was welcomed so warmly into these somewhat strangers' home that he really felt like all the stuff from the past didn't come with him into that home. So moving on in the story now, it was a brief moment, but he felt sheltered by their generosity. So there is another way I'm trying to explain sort of the internal stuff that is going on with this character, Aaron, that being welcomed so warmly, like you feel like you're a member of the family already, is a very generous thing for someone to do. And also, I imagine that it didn't linger very long. So that's where I was trying to get it, the brief moment and sheltered by their generosity. And then I happened upon what I think is actually probably the most important line in this whole short story. And it's something that I want to remind each and every one of you when you are writing. It is easy to forget about. You're always, as a writer, you're answering your own questions that are popping up in your mind. Okay, that's how I think of writing in a lot of ways. Oh, I'm writing a story about so and so, Aaron, and his life, and what is it about Aaron that I should tell the audience? And where is Aaron at? And what is Aaron thinking? Well, a lot of writers forget to use questions in their writing. So my next line that I wrote is the only question mark. It's the only question sentence in the actual piece of writing. And I imagined that Aaron was kind of shocked by how sweet and lovely and sort of serene the evening was for him. And so that's where I wrote this next line. With that in mind, I wrote, "How does one treat a stranger so warmly?" Question mark. So there is a question, probably from Aaron's mind. okay? Or one could imagine when they're reading it that it's the author speaking directly to the person who is reading this and is asking that person. So there's two ways that a question can function. Actually, there are many ways, but those are just a couple examples of how a question can be very, it can kind of like surprise you as a reader and kind of make you feel like you're being spoken to directly through the page. Or that you are hearing the innermost thoughts of a character. Those are a couple of different ways that questions can function in a piece of writing. So then, after that question, how does one treat a stranger so warmly? I wrote, he was in awe of their cordiality. And I was thinking about how if you haven't been treated this nicely and this warmly for a little while, that when it does happen, it can kind of be inspiring and you can become very awestruck in that moment. Was kind of where I was trying to go with this. And then I get back to describing Aaron's place in this new land. He knew in the course of a 30-minute dinner, he would be able to make this strange new life work. Okay? So, I still haven't told you what Aaron's job is. I still haven't told you where halfway across the world Aaron has ended up. I still haven't even told you who are the people that have invited Aaron over for this wonderful dinner. There's a lot of questions that I have left unanswered because I just got focused on Aaron as our main character and what is going on in Aaron's life. Now, if I were to write this piece longer, I would start to investigate some of those questions a little bit more. But for the purposes of today, I was pretty satisfied with where this ended up and the things that I didn't end up needing to answer for this short story. Moving along okay, so this is our last sentence. With a new pep in his step, he politely thanked them. And then I wrote a quotation back. So the story started with a quotation and it ends with a quotation. And Aaron says, "This evening has been remarkable. I can't believe how welcome you have both made me feel." And that's Aaron's message back to his hosts. Because I think when you invite somebody over to your place for a dinner or, just an afternoon hangout or whatever, you are playing host, okay? You are hosting that person. You're welcoming that person into your digs, your life, into your wherever you reside. And some people are super, super formal about hosting. Some people are really laid back about hosting. But I think regardless of how you host, making your guests feel genuinely welcomed to be there is just about the nicest thing you can offer to another human being. And that's ultimately what my story is about today, is about feeling welcomed by someone that you weren't expecting to feel welcomed. If I went to visit a family member, I would expect to feel pretty welcomed by them. But in this case, these are people that are getting to know each other. And our main character still feels remarkably welcomed. And I just thought, wow, that's a cool way to share a story, to write a story. So that's where I ended up today. Anyway, you guys, let me review our prompt for the day. The first sentence is, in quotation marks, "It was so lovely to meet you." And the second sentence is, "It was said in a way that immediately Excuse me. It was said in a way that immediately made him feel special. The long lost family member. Okay, so take a piece of paper and write that down, and feel free to rewind this video as many times as you need to get that written down, and then start writing down the rest of the page. This piece took me about 5 to 7 minutes, I would say. I spent a little bit more time on it because I had a hard time getting going. And I was caught up on all these questions I wasn't answering initially, and then I kind of just let it roll. And I hope that all of you do the same. All right, you guys, I will see you tomorrow for poetry, and I hope you all are staying safe and staying healthy. All right, bye.